off the bench right here on Chatterbox Sports. And, we had a chance last week to check in with our good buddy Dan Hoard, voice of both the UC Bearcats and the Cincinnati Bengals. Last week it was the Bearcats at Arkansas. This week the Bearcats are playing at home against Kennesaw State. Sold-out crowd already at Nippert Stadium tomorrow. And, of course, the Bengals v. Steelers sellout crowd where Dan will be calling both games. Danny, thanks for being with us. You got to get fired up, man, when now you're in the mode. And, look, it's nonstop for you. For those in Cincinnati, they know. I mean, it seems like every time you turn on the radio this time of year, you're either doing a game, hosting a coach's show. I mean, you got a lot going on. But this has got to be a really exciting weekend, I would imagine.
It is. It's the double dip. It's kind of an easy weekend, Tom. Both games are at home, so I don't have to worry about how I get from point A to point B, my own individual version of the amazing race on several weekends during the football season. But it's awesome. And I'm really looking forward to the atmosphere because it will be the first home game for both of these teams after two of the greatest seasons in their history. In UC's case, undoubtedly the greatest season in school history. And in the Bengals' case, one of three Super Bowl trips. But this one with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all these young stars, I think the excitement level is higher than ever for the Cincinnati Bengals. All
right, we're going to get to the Bengals here in a minute, if you don't mind. I want to ask you a little bit about UC. And let's turn back the clock. I know it's been dissected up one way and down the other. We've heard a lot of different people's thoughts. What were your thoughts when all is said and done? You've had 4 or 5 days now since that game. What do you take away from it, good, bad, or indifferent?
Well, let me describe, Tom, the scene after the game. So, as you know, you come down from the broadcast booth. I guess in your case, doing games for network TV, you were probably hopping in a limo and racing to the airport or something like that.
No.
But in my case, I'm walking down to the team buses, grabbing a bite to eat outside the locker room, and then talking to people as we make our way toward the bus. And the overwhelming feeling coming out of the locker room last Saturday was Cincinnati was the better team. And if not for typical week one mistakes, they would have won that game. But you can't go on the road to Arkansas, overthrow wide open receivers for long touchdown passes, commit 10 penalties, 8 of them pre-snap, including 4 in one sequence where you recovered a fumble at the 3-yard line down by 7 points. Those things will kill you. They haven't happened very often in the Luke Fickell era, but they happened in week one, and now Cincinnati has to try to run the table from here.
I want to walk through a couple of those points you just made, and you had pointed out about a couple of these Bengals receivers that are running 4.2 40s and stuff like this, and clearly that was right there, evidence, right there in front of everybody when these guys are going down the field. And Ben Bryant, it wasn't his first start at UC, but for all intents and purposes, it was his first huge start at UC. I know he filled in for Desmond a couple of years ago before going to Eastern Michigan. He made a lot of nice throws in that game. He missed a couple of touchdowns in that game, as you just pointed out. Do you think as we move forward, and not necessarily tomorrow, Dan, that the pressure begins to build? You know how provincial Cincinnati is. Evan Prater, local kid at Wyoming High School, player of the year in Ohio, the biggest recruit in the history of the University of Cincinnati. Do you get the feeling, being around the whole program, that kind of thing's sort of lingering around out there at all?
Not yet. Definitely not yet. I got the feeling from Luke Fickell and others that they, by and large, thought Ben Bryant did pretty well, all things considered, particularly in the second half on the road against a good SEC team. He threw for 233 yards and 2 touchdowns in the second half. He couldn't have been too much better after kind of an up and down first half. But I will say this about pressure mounting on a Bearcat quarterback. It wasn't very long ago. 3 games into his junior year, a significant portion of the Cincinnati fan base was calling for Desmond Ridder to be benched because he got off to a slow start. Could care less. He's going to evaluate it based on how Ben Bryant does. Now, if Ben does not continue to get better and doesn't play well, then Evan Prater is waiting in the wings and could certainly take over. But I don't get any sense whatsoever that pressure is mounting yet.
Okay. Was there anything that you walked away from after that game besides what you just mentioned that most people felt like UC was the better team? Was there any area of the team, secondary, offensive line, stopping the run, any of those kinds of things that stood out for you where you felt good about it or you kind of wondered about it?
Well, I'll say this. I think Ivan Pace is a stud. I thought that was going to be the case based on how he looked in spring football and in training camp, but what a debut in a Bearcats uniform. 12 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, a sack. He was all over the field, and he wasn't even in there for every defensive snap. I think his snap percentage just went up based on week one at Arkansas. What a great pickup from Miami of Ohio. Ivan Pace is. Some of the other areas you mentioned, I thought the secondary played pretty well considering they don't have three guys who are draft picks, including the number 4 overall pick in Sauce Gardner. All of the big plays last Saturday were plays that became big plays close to the line of scrimmage, a missed tackle, a bad angle, things like that. They certainly did not give up deep passes, so I think the secondary played well in that area. And as far as the offensive line is concerned, they lost a first-team all-league center, Jake Renfro, at practice in the week leading up to the season opener. Gavin Gerhardt, who had barely played in his first 2 years at Cincinnati, took over at center and did pretty well. So I think they were encouraged by how the offensive line did against that opponent under those circumstances.
Now, Kennesaw State, I mean, I think people just you roll your eyes sometimes, and every big program plays schools like this. But, I was looking into their, program quite a bit this morning. Now, look, I'm not saying they're Appalachian State rolling in here. I did that game, Appalachian State against Michigan, just had the 15th year anniversary of that thing last week. But they have some things that they can be quite proud of what they've done here the last number of years. 11-2, won the Big South last year. They were ranked 6th, I think, in the AFCA coming into the season. They did lose to Samford in week 1. But what do you know about Kennesaw State for the fans that are going to be tuned into that game tomorrow?
Well, here's all you need to know, Tom. It's a triple option team. That is the great equalizer at every level of football. We see it in high school football. We see it in college football. I guess we don't see it in the NFL anymore, but we certainly see it in high school and college football. If you are an undermanned team, what is the best strategy to try to even up those differences? I think it is being a triple option team. It's certainly helped the service academies compete over the years, and that is what Cincinnati is going to have to try to slow down on Saturday. And the triple option does a couple of things for a college football team. Number one, it presents the opponent with an offensive style that they don't see very often. And secondly, it kills the clock and keeps the other team's offense off the field. Now, in Luke Fickell's first year as Cincinnati's head coach, they faced Navy at Navy and gave up more than 500 rushing yards. And Luke, he said, that ain't ever going to happen again. Yeah. So they spent a lot of the offseason after that working on the triple option from a defensive perspective, studying it, talking to people who had had success defending it. And ever since then, they have made defending the option a regular part of practice. So in training camp, even with no triple option team immediately on the schedule, they'll work on it every 3 days, just so you don't have to try to teach how to defend it the week of the game. And they've done extremely well against Navy ever since. So that's the thing that you worry about going into the game, but I am confident that Cincinnati will be able to handle it.
Can't wait for that whole atmosphere down there. That's truly one of the great stadiums. Is that what you say, or is it Stadia? I'm not smart enough.
Stadia, if it's plural.
Thank you. See, you smart guys from the Northeast and Syracuse and wherever all that stuff. I mean, but that's such an incredible venue, and I'm so excited to see that place sold out. Shifting gears to the Bengals. We talked a little bit about this last week. Not a single starter got into a single snap during the preseason, except for the rookie offensive lineman who's won the guard, the Volsom who's won the spotted guard. And everybody else is out there for the first time. I asked you a week ago. I'm going to ask one more time. That doesn't concern you in the least bit, correct? You're on the record of that?
Well, tackling, I would say, would be the one area where you're maybe a little bit concerned, but it's a risk-reward situation, and I think the risk of playing those guys for any significant number of snaps in preseason games is not worth it. Look at the starters around the NFL who will not play in week one. The Jets don't have their starting quarterback, Zach Wilson. The Bucs don't have their center, Ryan Jensen. The Cowboys don't have their left tackle, Tyron Smith. Tre'Davious White, great cornerback for the Buffalo Bills, will not play tonight or will not play in the Thursday night game against the LA Rams. So if that's the risk that you run by playing those guys in preseason games, I want no part of it. Get my starters to the gate for the season opening game and run the risk of maybe missing some tackles as a result.
I asked Brian Billick this question yesterday, but he doesn't know the personalities like you do. Can a team have too many offensive weapons where egos start, now, you know what I'm saying. A lot of guys say that these wide receivers are divas. I'm not calling any of the Bengals wide receivers that because I've not gotten one inkling that any of them are in that category. They seem to be team-oriented guys very much. But can a team have too many? Do the Bengals have too many to keep everybody happy?
In the Bengals case, no, it's not a problem, and it's because of the personality of the wide receivers. I think Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd are unique in that respect. I don't think they're obsessed with their own numbers. Obviously, they want their opportunities. But the other thing that comes into play is that Joe Burrow throws it to the open guy. He is not going to lock in on any of them. So if the defense is designed to take away Jamar Chase, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are going to eat. If the defense is designed to prevent Tyler Boyd from catching the ball on third down, then Chase and Higgins are going to be the guys that Joe Burrow targets. So I suppose theoretically there are teams where you can have too many offensive weapons, but in my mind, that is not a problem at all with the Cincinnati Bengals. In fact, I think it's the biggest thing that gives them the chance of going back to the Super Bowl.
Are you surprised at all, Dan, because you follow other teams in the league? You have to when you're doing your job, and your preparation is unrivaled. Speaking of the Bills who play tonight, you just mentioned that in the season opener for the National Football League. Does it surprise you at all that they seem to be not just some people, but everybody's pick to go to the Super Bowl?
It's probably the kiss of death for the Buffalo Bills that everybody is picking Buffalo to win the Super Bowl. I think if you look at the metrics, it makes sense. If you're like a Football Outsiders guy, they were dominant in offensive and defensive DVOA. I won't get into the specifics of what all of that stuff means.
Please don't. My eyes start rolling when I hear that shit. Thank you very much. So please proceed. Pardon me.
No worries. So, they were great in these stats that we don't want to get into what they all mean, but they were great in that. They were a tremendous team last year. They should have won in Kansas City in the game before the Bengals did win in Kansas City. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Their defense is great. So from all of that stuff, it makes sense. But I am, like you, maybe a little bit surprised that it seems to be universal. There are so many great teams in the NFL. It's hard to believe that any team could be picked by virtually everybody to win the Super Bowl.
And, in the same vein, I've been quite surprised at how many people – and look, I know that whole argument about teams that lose the Super Bowl and historically they've had letdowns and so on and so forth. That's a chapter in the book all on its own. But just like Buffalo, I'm surprised how many people feel like Baltimore is almost a quote-unquote shoe-in to be the divisional champions over the Bengals.
Baltimore was the most injured team in recent NFL history last year, including Lamar Jackson. So in that sense, it makes some sense. They had an excellent record and were going head-to-head with the Bengals for first place in the division before seemingly everybody on the roster got hurt. But the thing I keep coming back to with people is the Bengals were the team that went to the Super Bowl last year, and they are better.
Yeah.
They didn't lose people like Kansas City did. They had a glaring weakness, and they attacked it. 80% of their offensive line will be different on Sunday against Pittsburgh. The 3 free agents they signed are all proven. Hopefully, La'el Collins is healthy. I guess that's maybe the one concern of those offensive line additions because he was banged up a bit early on in training camp. But if the offensive line is just league average, it doesn't even have to be great. It has to be middle of the pack or slightly better. If that's the case, this team should score a ton of points.
No doubt about it. Well, Danny, enjoy your weekend, man. I know I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. There are a billion of us that would trade places to go do what you're getting to do this weekend. So go enjoy every minute of it, man. Can't wait to listen to you.
Trust me, I am the luckiest man on the face of the earth, and stealing from Lou Gehrig, I can't wait. It's going to be an awesome weekend. Thanks for having me on, Tom.
No, thank you as always, Dan. Great to have Dan Hoard. That guy's such a phenomenal announcer. I mean, he's been a great announcer for a long time. And I keep saying he should have gotten the Reds job. When I got run, he should have gotten the job. That's my opinion. And he should be doing the Reds.